Conversation with the Candidate continues.
Welcome back to Conversation with the Candidate. We're going to bring in our studio audience here of New Hampshire voters and their questions for Governor Bullock. I'll jump in with a follow-up and a social media question or two, but let's get things started with Joan Wentworth.
Good evening, Governor.
Good evening, Joan.
Unlike many of the other candidates, you have not endorsed the Green New Deal resolution. So I would like to know, as president, what steps would you take to get the country back on track in addressing the challenges of climate change?
No, and thanks for the question, Joan, because it's important not just to me, but hopefully everyone throughout this state and our country. You know, the current Secretary of Interior said he doesn't lose sleep over climate change. As a father of 3 kids, as someone who's dealt with fire seasons now 78 days longer in the West than when I was growing up, I do lose sleep. We need to take immediate and durable steps. The IPCC, the scientists say that we need to be net zero emissions for the whole world by 2050. I think we can do it a lot earlier, 2040 or even before. Step 1 would be to turn around and say we need to rejoin the Paris Accords, because we can't do this alone and we need to fully fund it. Look, not even the auto industry was asking for the removal of these fuel efficiency standards. We need to be investing at the federal level in both the most antiquated piece of machinery that we have in this country is the electrical grid. It can't even take all the renewable and solar that we need. But we also need to be investing in the ways for agriculture to change, to be able to actually become captures more of the emissions. And, you know, like the dairy producers is one example, are already well along that way. I think that we also got to recognize as we go down this path, the first George H.W. Bush said we are going to address the greenhouse effect with the White House effect. Here was a Republican president that said we need to address climate change and we'll do it from the great leadership of the top. Now Republicans won't even acknowledge that climate change is human caused because of the outside influence of spending in our elections. So I think that we need to actually have a path along the way. I think that the Green New Deal is an aspirational document of here's what we need to do. A 4-page document is good. But we need a plan and we need to actually get there long before, and I think we can before what the scientists say that we have to be globally at a net zero.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick follow on that, Governor. Is it realistic to eliminate fossil fuels from our energy system by 2050?
Well, I think that, you know, there's been more technological change in our phones in the last 5 years than there has in how we produced energy in so many ways. So I'm not quite sure that we don't even need to necessarily, like all from gas and oil, we may not end up eliminating all fossil fuels even by then. But what we do know is each and every year, we got to take 1 billion tons of CO2 out of our environment if we're going to meet the IPCC goals. Now, China right now produces twice as much carbon as we do. So we can't do it alone. Certainly, and I've been also as governor of Montana, we've doubled our wind. We've quadrupled our solar. I've been the co-chair of the national both wind and solar coalition. Also been the lead in the last 4 or 5 years of a carbon capture group. Even now, sort of conservationists and scientists are saying we've got to figure out a way actually to draw some of this CO2 out. So you may end up at a time in 2050 where, look, technology may make batteries in the next decade to the point where fossil fuels wouldn't even be profitable when we're even talking about oil and gas. But we need to, like we've led as a country in so many different ways. China is investing more in renewable technology than we are. And we at the government level, at the federal level, is taking further and further steps back. That's not the way to lead.
Email question coming in here from Sherry Schmidt. Governor Bullock, do you have a plan for what you'll do as President of the United States if the Democrats retake the White House but are unable to flip the Senate? How will you handle Majority Leader McConnell blocking critical legislation and pushing through partisan GOP nominees?
No, and that's one, thanks Sherry, if you're watching this evening by email. But that's one that, look, my whole time as governor, I've gotten progressive things done, and my legislature is 60% Republican at best. When I first got in, it was 2/3 Republican. We've been able to expand health care to 100,000 Montanans. We passed the most progressive law when it comes to dark money in our elections, trying to make elections about people. We actually made it so that froze college tuition for 6 of the 8 years I've been governor, have the 4th lowest tuition and fees. How I get that done in Montana is certainly I try to build working relationships with Republicans in our state legislature, but I can't just sit there in the state house. And I end up like when we got Medicaid expansion through, I think I went to every rural hospital in our state. And just for context, you could fit 15 New Hampshires in the state of Montana. So it's take a lot of travel, right? So I think that really, that what we need to look at is it's not going to be enough as president to sit in D.C. and make the case to the senators. You actually have to make the case to the country. And I'd probably be spending as much time in Kentucky, in Senator McConnell's district, as I would be if that's who I needed to move to get things done. And I think that's what we've lost at times in Washington, D.C. And a different perspective as a governor is that I need to figure out ways to get people to work with me. But if they're unwilling to work with me, the ultimate boss of them is all of you. So I go directly to the districts and I talk to folks because most people outside of either my state house or Washington, D.C. actually wants government to function and to make a positive impact on their lives. And they don't like what they see when all there is gridlock.
Next question comes from Leonard Morrill.
First of all, thank you for joining us tonight. You have been for approving the Affordable Care Act. How would you take it from something many believe is unaffordable to affordable?
Yeah, and thanks for the question, Leonard, because if you're like so many folks that I run into, right, you know that we need health care, but it is to the point where, I was talking to a teacher who had to take another job just to pay for her insulin. And it's like, wait a minute, because that insulin was 1/3 of her take-home salary. Like, really? We're making our educators work at night just to pay for health care? I think health care has to be accessible and affordable. Here's how I think that we could make it more affordable. First, to have a public option. So a Medicare for anyone that wants it, to be able to buy in. Second, which we pay more for prescription drugs and health care than any country in the world, and we have nothing to show for it in that respect. And we need to be able to, and let's not kid ourselves, the prescription drug companies spend a lot of money in this political, basically getting folks elected. So we should be able to negotiate drug prices. The federal government's the biggest payer. That would bring things down all the way, or bring prices down for everyone. I think also that you could end surprise medical billing and out-of-network charges by the incentives that the federal government brings along. So really it is, that there are about 156 million people that have employer-sponsored health insurance. I don't want to get rid the full disruption of 70% of the folks that are getting the health care through that. But what I do want to do is make the incentive so that it's not so unaffordable for folks. I think you can do that by improving upon the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard.
Thanks, Leonard. Next question comes from Ann Ackerman.
Good morning, Ann.
Hi there. Welcome to New Hampshire.
It's good to be here.
My question is that there are many changes being proposed for the Supreme Court and the Electoral College. Do you think these changes are needed? And if so, what and why?
Oh, and thank you for the question, Ann, because I think people are trying to figure out our way through all of this. And I'll do the Electoral College first. It is a shame that it's fairly shocking that in 2 of the last 5 elections, the popular vote winner wasn't the one that won the presidential election. But from where I sit, the question ought to be, why are Democrats losing those places that we used to win, not blowing up the overall system? And we've got to turn around and say, because if we can't win back, if we can't both bring out our base and win back places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, places that we lost in 2016, even if you can cobble together those 270 electoral votes, if the rest of the country doesn't connect with the Democratic Party and we can't get senators, if we can't get House members, you're never going to be able to govern again. So I wouldn't get rid of the Electoral College. I think what we need to do is make sure the Democrats are more competitive in a lot of those areas where we haven't been winning. And I think that I can do that. Secondarily, you know, I've got to argue in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And for a lawyer, like, that's the Super Bowl. It really is. And I want to believe that politics are out of the court's decisions and that it is an independent, separate branch of our government. But when we saw what Mitch McConnell did with the last appointment for a whole year in President Obama's terms, we know that that's not the case. So I would be open. First of all, I want to believe that even this court, as appointed, is going to recognize that august opportunity and responsibility it has to protect our Constitution, protect cases like Roe versus Wade, which has been around for 47 years. I would be open to the thought of expanding from 9 to 11 justices. In many respects, then, that could make up for some of essentially what Senator McConnell and Senate Republicans did as President Obama's term came to the end. I wouldn't put term limits on. I think we've seen time and time again that actually justices, at times, the longer they're on, the more wise they get, and they actually understand their obligation and their responsibility. So, no, I wouldn't get rid of the Electoral College. Instead, I think we got to ask ourselves, why aren't Democrats connecting with voters that ought to be there? And two, I would be open to the possibility and prospect of expanding the Supreme Court by 2, though I'm hopeful that we won't need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick follow-up on that, Governor.
Please.
Some of your fellow candidates have called for an actual litmus test on Roe v. Wade. This is something that has not been the norm. Usually that, they try to ask around that in those Senate confirmation hearings, don't they? What do you think of this idea of making a Supreme Court nominee declare their intent?
Well, I think the challenge is, and as governor, like, we have an elected judiciary. But as governor, I've appointed more than half of our overall state judiciary and 2 of our Supreme Court justices because of folks stepping down and things like that. And time again, I've sat through every one of those interviews. I want to make sure that somebody that I appoint is consistent with my values. And I know that they would protect precedent like Roe versus Wade. My only challenge with saying is a litmus test is I think the minute a judge or judicial candidate says, here's how I'll vote on an issue, they're not going to be able to serve. They wouldn't be able to serve on the Supreme Court or on that decision. So I will do everything I can to vet the court, my judicial candidates, to ensure that they would uphold what's 47 years now. And I wish for 47 years now we'd actually be talking about protecting and promoting women's health, not continuing to attack it. Whether I'd say it's a direct litmus test, I want that judge to have the values that would uphold it.
Next question comes from Nancy Keene.
Hi,
Hi,
welcome
Nancy.
to New Hampshire.
It's good to be
and
here.
Thank you for being here. Yes. My question is, I'm looking at the candidates, and we have so many good candidates.
37, 45.
Yeah,
it's a good point,
100.
Nancy,
Yeah. There's so many good ones. And like all of us, I think here, we're all undecided. We don't know who to go for. But if you are the successful candidate and you become president, who are the other candidates that you might consider for your administration?
Yeah, and I appreciate that question, Nancy, because it is exciting in many respects how many good people we have running. And I think we all bring different things. Like, I do bring a perspective that's outside of Washington, D.C., a perspective where I've had to balance budgets and govern. When I would be looking to assemble my cabinet, I want them to bring different life experiences and different skills and different experiences than what I've had. So there are many things from a policy perspective, from a discussion and trying to incite a greater thing that I've thought the world of, as Senator Warren has spoken of. Had the opportunity to serve with Kamala Harris as Attorney General. Actually, my neighbor to the south, John Hickenlooper, as governor of Colorado, some of his business sense. So I don't want to presume what my overall cabinet would look like right now, But I do think that there's a wealth of talent both in these individuals that are competing for this position and also others not necessarily in Washington, D.C. that could bring the great perspectives that we need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think you could name any Republicans to your cabinet? And if so, would you name one?
Look, there are, and that's one of those things that, no, there is a real good possibility that I would, and I don't want to use their names because that could only hurt them right now at this point, right? But as an example, like, so I'm currently chair of the National Governors Association, Democrats and Republicans. I was chair of the Western Governors Association. Throughout the West, my neighbors to the south or the west, like, you know, I'm surrounded by Republican governors. But we figured out ways to make things work. And I think that, especially at like the state executive level, it can't be about politics, right? Because I run into people, whether they've got health care or whether they're frustrated with what I'm doing as governor. I hear from them when I take my son to the Target. It can't be about speeches. It actually has to be about getting things done to meaningfully improve the lives of people. And I think that especially from a governor's executive role, and Democrats and Republicans, the differences that we have are probably a lot smaller than the similarities, in as much as that we can't just wait for Washington to give speeches. We actually have to implement and make a difference. So I think that there would be a good chance that I would try to pull some folks from the other party or that had served as Republicans here.
We've got about a minute left, and I'm going to throw you a huge question.
Am I talking too fast?
Huge
Too
question
slow?
here. So
Huge question.
water rights are really big in the West. What are you going to do when we run out of water in the western United States due to climate change?
Well, and oddly enough, it was a water rights case that I got to argue in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on. I mean, it's another one of the reasons why we need to address climate change, because it is going to fundamentally upset not only our economies, not only our way of life. I mean, I had 1.3 million acres burned 2 years ago, biggest fire season in our state's history. I think that you have to look at the traditional sides of water law, but we're also doing a lot on climate resiliency, meaning that it's not just about addressing greenhouse gas, though we desperately need to do it. We also need to make, from our farmers and producers to what we're doing in the woods, we need to make our geography and our terrain more resilient to the changes, because we're seeing the changes.
All right, Governor Bullock, we thank you so much
Thanks
for joining
so
us on
much.
Conversation with the Candidate. This conversation will continue online and on our mobile app, so join us there. We will take a break next week, but after that, we'll be back with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand on the week of July 8th. We hope you join us for that. But again, join us online and on our mobile app. Thanks.
Thank you.